Well, we were very pleased to be invited to curate another programme of films from Galway, and we're now, I think, in our fourth year of programming films from the Irish Film Archive to bring down to the Fleadh. The films in this programme date from the 1930s right up to the 1970s, and the earliest film is one that we're very excited about. It's called Ireland by Air, and it's one that we came across recently in the Scottish Film Archive. It's a film made by a Mr. Dick. That's, I'm afraid, all we know about the filmmaker. But the focus is on a young aviatrix, Winnie Drinkwater, who was a Scottish pilot, and she wrote of working with journalists to fly along Loch Ness to look for the Loch Ness Monster. So she's all sorts of interesting jobs to do. But in 1933, she flew to Ireland, and Mr. Dick accompanied her and films along the way. There was a collection of films commissioned by the Irish Folklore Commission and the National Museum of Ireland to document dying crafts around the country. There's oyster dredging and there's box tea making. So curious little crafts that the staff in the National Museum had the foresight to understand that if they hadn't been documented in these films, they might not otherwise appear in folk memory. Today's Glimpses of Galway programme again has a sound and silent part to it. And the sound films work all by themselves. The silent films really are greatly enhanced by the live music that will be presented by Deirdre Ní Conaoile. Deirdre is an Aran Island fiddler, and she has a terrific expertise around music of the Aran Islands and music of the west of Ireland. So there's nothing happenstance about the music here. It's very considered, and it will be very, thematically, it will work very well with the films. Happily, there are systems now in place whereby films made in Ireland with state funding are deposited in the Irish Film Archive for preservation. So anyone in receipt of Film Board funding or BAI funding or Arts Council funding, they are obliged to deposit copies with us. So gradually the loopholes are being closed and material is coming into us. So that's contemporary production, but we still are pleased that people come into us with materials, maybe amateur collections, maybe their forebears, materials that have been left behind after somebody may have died. So that material continues to come into us. One of the films that I'm particularly pleased to screen here today is a film made by Hugh Thomas Seal. So a Galwegian filmmaker who made films of his family as they grew up through their childhood in the 1970s. And this is a film that I learnt of when I was running late for one of the early Glimpses of Galway programmes. I jumped in a cab and my taxi driver was Hugo Seal, who, when he inquired about what I was doing, he said, "Oh, my father made films." And we had a great chat about them. And soon after, Hugo arrived into the archive in Dublin with the family film collection. And they've come in, they're now preserved, and elements have been digitised, and we're going to show 3 or 4 minutes, just a glimpse of the collection here today. And they're extraordinarily beautiful. That's a real joy, for that kind of circularity that we happened upon it coming down to Galway, and here we're screening it today. It's enormously important to identify these films, to acquire them, to preserve them in their original format, and of course to digitise them so that they can be made accessible in all sorts of ways on online platforms, and screening in cinemas, because I'd be a great champion of the community's cinema experience. Film is fragile, and if it isn't brought into the National Film Archive, it will disappear. People sometimes are unaware of the significance of the work, and we often hear horror stories of people coming across film collections and just dumping them because they may not have the means of showing them. If they don't have a projector, they think this odd material is obsolete, and things are thrown out. But with a programme like we'll see today, you absolutely see the importance of preserving this material for the communities that they represent, so that they would be of local interest. I expect there will be a good degree of recognition of people and places that we'd be unaware of, people not from Galway would be unaware of, but also then nationally this work is absolutely part of our heritage and is part of the fabric of Irish society. So there's no question about the importance of preserving this material.